And as that new behavior becomes disinhibited, people try it out. Like a baby flailing, you know, I'm going to flail, I'm going to try some different behavior around here. And then all of a sudden they land on the behavior that we've offered to them, that we've inculcated in their belief space. It activates, they take the action that it dictates and get a good result. It triggers that moral judgment, says, oh, that's what I was looking for. And all of a sudden it resets that norepinephrine level and they're okay again. We call that mechanism triggering. And so we'll infect an organization, we'll establish memes in people and establish that new measurement criteria, and then we'll trigger them with a triggering event. And we try to do this on Fridays if at all possible, all right, so that they don't trigger at work. All right, they have a weekend to think about it. Sorry, folks at home when somebody's been triggered. All right. So, but as you might imagine, because the brain and the body is working so hard to rebalance norepinephrine levels, people actually begin to, they itch, they scratch all weekend long. They'll feel random pain when they're undergoing this kind of a change. All right. Now, we have to be careful. Someone undergoing a significant change, someone who's under a lot of pressure, I'm talking about toxic memes again, someone who's in a really bad situation, they can't find the behavior that gets them out of that stressful situation, will continue to deplete norepinephrine to the point that pain nerves will continue to be undersupplied, and they'll begin to feel pain. They'll go to the doctor, they can't understand it, the stress goes away, the pain will go away because norepinephrine levels will rebalance. Right? However, it can get so bad that they will undergo such a depletion of norepinephrine that pressure signals will get through. Have you ever heard anyone say, it just feels like a weight is crushing down on me? Okay. Well, that's because they've lost so much disinhibition that even the pressure nerves are starting to fire. That signal can get through to the brain. And what we find happens with people is because they can feel it, the brain tries to rationalize it. I've had people describe the shape and the weight and the color texture and the lichens on the boulders that they said were pushing down on them at the time. They actually hallucinate. So they can't see it, they know it's not there, but they can describe it as if they were standing there looking at it. Right? And so someone in that condition is in an extreme stress. The only thing we can do for them is offer resource. Right? But offering resource will take that pressure away because it allows the norepinephrine levels to now be used for something beneficial rather than driving them further and further down with those toxic memes. Yes?
Can't you also reduce time pressure?
You can. We reduce time pressure by trusting them to make the best decision. And the way we do this, say, okay, this is your choice to make. Our resources are behind you 100%, no matter which avenue you choose to follow. We'd rather have a good decision than a fast one. Right? We find that they typically make very fast, very accurate, very beneficial decisions because memory kicks in at that point. Yeah?
So, kind of going along those lines, you find that organizations that find ways to unburden people with some, for some of their time work are actually more innovative than those who time slice and really get 100% of, you know where I'm.
Yeah, I actually do know what you're talking about, and thank you for that because it lets me talk about two things I'd love to talk about. One of them is when we talk about organizations that provide resource for employees, one of the things we say is you ought to be able to ask every single person who walks in the door every single day, and they should be able to tell you that they believe, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that they have the full faith, confidence, and backing of this organization or your organization behind them for any problem, personal or professional. If you work in that kind of organization, that's a company that's going to climb the cognitive layer and be incredibly innovative. Things like that. Right? That's our goal, frankly, when we talk about making change in organizations. And I have people come in and on change projects, and they'll, after a while, when things are starting to really click and the organization's assimilating those changes, so usually about the 5-month time, people will walk in the room in the meetings with me and say, sit down, and they'll say, this is how I want to work forever. This is the way I always want to work. We've got a great team, it's collaborative, everyone's looking out for each other, and we're getting so much work done. Deadlines go away because you're getting them done way ahead of time. That sort of thing. Now, it sounds utopic, right? So I'm going to ask you, please don't pick up the pitchforks just yet. Right? We don't need flaming brands or anything. Now, the other thing that we talk about there is in terms of organizations that offer good resource, right? Where we've got that organization where everybody's really got it together. What we find is that humans, being neural networks, are really great at solving problems, and it doesn't matter where they start. They can often reach the same solution or an equivalent solution of equal quality. So we're really fantastic at that. But neural networks are incredibly bad at doing the same thing the same way twice. How many times has anyone here ever taken the same action in exactly the same way more than once? A couple of people, right? How often does that happen? Not very much. Usually it's a little bit different. Okay? Humans are really good at solving problems. Okay? Environments are really good at being highly structured. We need to have structure in order to focus communications, to get efficiencies of time savings and cost savings, and for communications and for deliverables and things like that. So a lot of organizations try to focus their structure on their hierarchy rather than their environment, their products, their process, and their deliverables. So if I create a highly structured process and a highly structured environment that's effective at delivering resource, I'm allowing the human neural network to plug into that process and solve the problems, and then those solutions get rapidly communicated and shared across the organization. All right? So we put structure in place that's really good at repeating delivery of information, for example, or sharing of knowledge. And we take structure away from humans and give them resource so that they more rapidly and more concretely find good solutions by building on past experience. And then are able to plan ahead and build from there. So we see a little bit of a change in organizations that go through this. They tend to move away from a hierarchical management structure. They tend to flatten out their hierarchies, and they tend to put process and the environment, as a focus for structure, and have people that they say, look, we've got really good people, and they know where to plug in, and they pick up work and do it whenever it needs to be done, sort of thing. That warehouse approach said, our people see what needs to be done, and they do it. We don't have to measure them, right? We measure by saying, look, all the packages got packed. And if they needed to stay late, they did. And if they didn't, they went home. That sort of thing. Other questions? Yes?
A couple of questions.
Okay.
Up until now, you've dealt with, average number of memes and how you can change the receptivity with replicating memes. What about when you're dealing with individuals or groups who've been through more or less periods of change than the average? What kind of lessons do we see there?
Mm-hmm. Depending on the results of that change, right? If it was a change that people say, oh, I don't ever want to do that again, right? When you start talking about change with them, they're going to start running from the room. Okay, and rightly so, right? Because they've had some bad or difficult experiences with it. What we find is that these three memes we talked about are specifically designed to simply get them to generalize. And when we get someone to generalize, we depersonalize that worry a little bit for them, right? So that, oh yes, I had a bad experience, that doesn't mean they'll all be bad. Right, because I can remember other good experiences where we made change and things like that. We also find that sometimes it's very necessary to limit the context of the change, right, to break it down into something that is acceptable to someone. And so it might be that, especially when you're trying to establish a trust relationship with someone to affect change and express memes, maybe the only thing you can trust them to do is to choose where to go eat lunch. Right? You're still trusting them. It's necessary to establish that trust and to believe it. Right? Because the nonverbal will give you away every time. If you walk in the door and say, I trust you to make this decision, and you don't really believe it, they're not going to ever believe you again. Right? But if you walk in the door and say, would you like to pick where we go eat lunch? All right? And really mean it, because maybe it doesn't matter to you, right, for example, then you will begin to affect that meme expression, and it could take a while for those groups or those organizations, depending on what experience they had. All right. No, thank you.